What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to the channel for the first time if you're new. Today, we're going to be talking about the biggest winners and losers from this past National Signing Day. But before we get into that, we're about to be doing a giveaway attached to a subscriber goal. So go ahead and subscribe, turn the notifications on, and go ahead and get in front of the 8 ball on that. But with that out the way, Drew, go ahead and kicking it to you. With the NIL opening up, it's completely changed the way that colleges are recruiting players. It's done completely differently, even from 3-4 years ago. So with all that being said, and in this new generation of recruiting, who is your biggest winner in this past recruiting season?
Yeah, and there were a lot of teams that did really well in the signing day, especially in the SEC, most notably led by the LSU Tigers. I think, in my opinion, had one of the best signing days. A team that was really written off before the season even started last year. Obviously, there was a lot of questions for Brian Kelly making his first year in the SEC, and there are a lot of Notre Dame fans, and I know this because I go on Twitter, I go on Instagram, I've seen Notre Dame fans talk about this, is one of their main complaints about Brian Kelly was his ability to recruit. Now, he was never a terrible recruiter or anything like that, but no one ever saw him as an elite recruiter, and he's doing pretty good at LSU after his first season there. 6 overall right now, and they're number 1 right now in the transfer rank according to 247 Sports. Gotten a lot of players in from the transfer portal. Things are really looking good for LSU in this upcoming season. Of course, the signing day is a big boost, and they have a lot of players coming back. Obviously, Jaden Daniels, are starting quarterbacks, coming back. They're returning a lot of guys on offense, and this is a team that just won their division from last year. And I think LSU could be, you can make a case that they could be the favorites to win the West again this year, just considering what they have coming back. And when you look at other teams from the SEC West, like Alabama, who did also have a really good signing day as well. I do have some legitimate questions about Alabama, though. I think it's going to be a video for another day. But Alabama has a lot of questions that need to be answered. But I think LSU and Brian Kelly should be really excited about what they just did this past signing day. I think LSU fans have a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, Drew, that's not a bad pick. When Brian Kelly first got to LSU and you talked about it, his biggest thing was he couldn't recruit guys. And when he was on TikTok doing all those TikTok dances, going up like this against a player that ended up going to Alabama, it wasn't a good look on social media at first, especially when, he went down and immediately adopted that fake Southern accent that, everybody saw straight through. But, he proved a lot of people wrong. They beat Alabama. They came out the West and got to play in the SEC championship. And, I think LSU's quarterback, he's not a bad quarterback, but for him to go to the SEC championship with that guy, that does show you something. And, they had a talented offense. They had talented receivers, but you didn't see the receivers have consistent production throughout the whole season. But for them to still be able to find a way to get into the SEC championship, that's a big deal. But for my biggest winner, I'm going to go out the SEC West as well. But you were kind of throwing some shade at Alabama. But I think that, in my opinion, they by far won this signing day. Out of the 39 5-stars, they got 9 of them. And like 12 of the guys that they signed are top 10 or higher for their specific position. So, like, starting out with their O-line, Caden Proctor, he was the number 1 O-lineman in this class for a long time, ended up being number 2. Olausa Lennon, his father played for the Falcons. He's from Finland, the number 1, I think, European football player ever, but he's 6'6". He's a monster. And then Wilkin Formby, another top 10 O-lineman that they got, not to mention, Caleb Downs, Malik Benson, both number 1 for safety and corner. So they're studded out. And, Tommy Rees coming from Notre Dame to Alabama, this is his first recruiting class. I was listening to some interviews with some of these guys coming in, and the linemen specifically were talking about Tommy Rees has already been building a connection with these guys, and, he wants to go ahead and get working. And if you get a class believing that, there's something special, it'll start to manifest like that. And I'm just seeing that from these guys at Alabama. Maybe I'm buying into the hype a little bit, but I definitely think that this Bama team, coming off a season where expectations weren't met, are going to come back with vengeance this next season. I think a lot of these freshmen are going to be playing for Alabama next year.
Yeah, and Alabama and LSU, when you look at these two teams, obviously they're always going to be loaded with talent. When you look at the struggles that Alabama might have had last year, or the bad seasons that LSU's had, talent's never really been the issue. These are teams that usually consistently reload. But in these certain cases, I think Alabama, this is one of the better recruiting classes they've had in a while. Definitely one of the better ones they've had under Nick Saban. Of course, LSU to reload after what they did last year. I think both these teams are on a good track. And it's going to make for a really good matchup between LSU and Alabama this year, and that's going to be probably one of the games of the year, without question. Now, moving on to our losers, here's a team that's interesting, Aiden. A team that's made the playoffs 2 years in a row. They beat Ohio State 2 years in a row, their arch rival. But for some reason, they finished 18th in recruiting for this season. and they didn't land one 5-star player. Let me say this: they didn't land a single player within the top 100. And of course, I'm talking about the Michigan Wolverines. I don't know what it could be. There could be multiple things that are going on behind the scenes. It could be the deal with Jim Harbaugh flirting with the NFL so much with his foot in, foot out the door situation. It's every offseason it seems like this dude is interviewing for the NFL. And I think to some degree, as long as that's been going on and it's been affecting these recruits, and I think a lot of these teams like Ohio State and Penn State or teams that are recruiting guys that are thinking of going to Michigan, that's definitely being used against Michigan. Talking about Jim Harbaugh's probably going to leave. You don't want to go there. I'm sure those are tactics that are being used, and I think it's starting to rub off. Not only that, we talked about at the beginning of the video you did about NIL and how that's changing the game, with how recruits are thinking about what team they want to go play for. Michigan has not bought into the NIL. You can't adapt to times, you're just going to get left behind. Look at Clemson, look at Dabo Swinney. Look at what he did with not embracing the transfer portal. And now you see a case where Michigan's not really embracing NIL, and you can see how that's affecting it. This is a team that has won the Big Ten 2 years in a row, made the playoffs, and they can't recruit inside the top 15. And yeah, here's another fun fact, Aiden. The Big Ten as a whole, the entire conference, signed one 5-star player, and he went to Ohio State. That is the only 5-star player that the Big Ten as a whole has signed. So overall, I mean, of course, Michigan is probably the highlight of one of the weirdest teams and one of the biggest losers, in my opinion, from this past signing day. But the Big Ten as a whole really just took an entire dump.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about Michigan, you were talking about their lack of will to indulge in the NIL deals and stuff. I saw one thing on the internet. They started a GoFundMe for their fans to donate to keep their, 4 or 5 best players. I don't remember off the top of my head. It was their best lineman, the running back, I think maybe an edge rusher, to stay for their senior season rather than forgoing that and then, go ahead and declaring for the draft. So, that's a little weird to me. That's the first time I've seen like a crowd-funded, a fan-funded GoFundMe to keep these players in the building. It'll be interesting to see how that develops over the course of time, but I think you nailed it on the head talking about Harbaugh's always toying with the NFL. He's always toying with other jobs. But, with that being said, let's not forget, a lot of people had Harbaugh on the hot seat going into the, this season because it's kind of like he's been there for long enough. You know what he's going to get you, but he's not going to take you to that next step. So are you going to be complacent with, getting right on the cusp of being a great team, but you're not getting over the edge? Or are you going to keep trying to pursue, that title? And until Michigan beat Ohio State, Harbaugh's job, was kind of in question for a lot of guys. So I think that's a big red flag for a lot of guys coming into Michigan. And then they see the success that Ohio State's been having, or, with NIL, Big 12 signed a lot of guys that are 5 stars. The ACC only got 4, but, for whatever reason, you're not seeing a lot of guys wanting to come to the Big 10. Now, you only saw that one 5-star come from Ohio State, but Ohio State didn't have a bad recruiting class in general, but it is a lot lower than what you would normally see, from an Ohio State. One more team that I thought didn't have a great signing day was Texas A&M, going from number 1 last year, with arguably one of the greatest recruiting classes of all time, falling all the way down to number 15. They had a lot of decommits, most notably 5-star linebacker Anthony Hill, also Eli Holstein. I think I'm saying that name right, 4-star quarterback, decommitted from Texas A&M and went to Alabama, so that's never good. But another thing that I noticed when looking at the Texas A&M signing, they didn't have a lot of defensive players. Now, they signed a lot of young guys last year, but it was mostly in the defensive backfield. I want to see some interior linemen from Texas A&M that are really putting their names on the maps, that are young guys. This was a young team last year, and it had a lot of turmoil, a lot of drama in the building. So, that class from last year is going to be maturing. So they went through a lot. So, they're either gone or they're committed. So it's going to be interesting to see, how that fares, with this lackluster class coming in. Will they be able to balance it out and get some consistency in that program? I'm not sure with Jimbo. You're paying him so much money. We talked about it on the channel so many times. He wins one national championship in, 2013, and now he has permanent job security. I don't too much agree with that, but Texas A&M, that'll be a team to look out for next year.
Yeah, Texas A&M, a team, they just don't look like they're on a positive track right now. 27 players transferring out. Obviously, the recruiting class nowhere near the level as what they had last year, and just all the drama that's been going on. It's almost at this point, Jimbo Fisher, the boosters are just waiting to get that money saved up. And once they get that money saved up, I feel like he's out of there, especially if Texas A&M has another bad season this upcoming year. But only time will tell with that.
Yeah, Drew. And then one last team I wanted to talk about was Colorado. With the incoming of Deion Sanders and all the guys he's bringing into Colorado, they went from basically being unranked on the, nobody knew where they were on the national signing ranking, all the way up to 29th. They're in front of teams like Kentucky, and some other big name teams that, it would surprise you a little bit. And of course, Deion got the number one player in this recruiting class for the second year in a row. And he's bringing the one he got last year from Jackson State to Colorado. So this Colorado team is going to be something to look out for. I know we literally just made a video predicting what the record was going to be. I think we kind of settled between 3 and 4 wins. I think the over-under is 4.5, so we took the under on that. But, that doesn't mean that, just because you're going to have a bad season in your first year, it's a multi-year thing. It's going to take 2-3 years to develop the culture and develop, how Deion's going to want things done. But with that being said, just his ability to recruit and flip players, the first guy coming to mind, Amarion Miller, big frame, wide receiver, makes hard catches look easy, massive catch radius. He committed to LSU first, then to Nebraska before he finally committed to Colorado with Deion. So Deion's going to have that ability to flip these top-tier players from, your upper echelon schools and get them to buy in and come to the cold, come to the mountains in Colorado, and really get them to buy into what Coach Prime got going on.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. Like you said, we did just do a video on that, and I think Colorado kind of got a little screwed with their schedule. Their schedule, even if Colorado wasn't good standing right now, they'd probably still be in for a rough season just by looking at the schedule and just looking at the competitiveness of the Pac-12 right now. Colorado, a team, like you said, I think in a couple years, 3 years of good recruiting like that, Colorado could be a very competitive team that could be potentially competing for Pac-12 titles. Of course, there's got to be a culture and people got to buy into it, and it's going to have to take a couple seasons for that to really get installed, like you said. Colorado is definitely going to be a team to look out for. I'm not really high on them this season, but like you said, I think Colorado is still going to be really fun to watch. I think you're going to see a big jump in improvement from last year to this year. And if Deion Sanders can get to 4 wins or even 5 wins this season, I think that's a terrific job. He just has a really tough task in Colorado to go in there and to win football games at the moment. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Those are your biggest winners and losers from the signing day. And as mentioned at the beginning of the video, we are doing a giveaway soon. We're going to set a subscriber goal, and then we're also going to create a Twitter. That's going to be how you would enter the giveaway. But we'll have more details on that later on as we figure things out. So definitely be on the lookout for that, guys. Those of you who've been subscribed to the channel for a while, we do want to say thank you so much, especially those who have been there since the beginning. We really do appreciate you guys, and we're really excited to where this channel is heading, and we're glad that you guys can be with us on this journey. But that's going to be it for this video, guys. Be looking out for more content coming out this week, and we'll see you in the next one.